could directly lead to these issues, you can always turn around and just be like, nah, it's the fact that black people may or may not have been working the job. Great stuff, man. It's always a fantastic, super easy way to deflect the blame.
In an hour of anguish.
I was a CH-47 crew chief. The helicopter could not have taken down the plane on purpose. They could have been in the wrong place and the plane would hit them if the ATC didn't catch them and correct in time. Helicopters are very slow compared to airliners. Yeah, I don't know why people think that the helicopter literally directly collided with the plane deliberately. Like, it's insane. I don't think people understand how fast planes are and how slow helicopters are in comparison. And they just think it's like Grand Theft Auto 5, maybe. It's because the video looked like it was flying straight to it. Yeah, from your perspective, it looks like the helicopter is flying straight into the plane. But that's not, like, that's physically not possible unless a plane has been parked. A helicopter, like a plane that is, even when a plane is landing, they're still faster than a helicopter. What's the speed of the plane on approach? Like, even when the plane is approaching the runway, is still going like, 150, 140, 120, 100 miles. Like, have you never seen a plane land? Like, think about how fast it is when it touches the ground, even when it touches the runway. Think about how fast that plane is. And that is after the plane has already, like, pumped the brakes, per se. It's a very fast moving target. 150 landing speed, FAA Andy here. Was an air traffic controller in the Marine Corps and then was a drone pilot. Most of our aircraft don't fly. Dudes are exhausted because they make us. They aren't supposed to. Pull 12 on, 12 off, then do flight ops. The military doesn't care about rules. Most drink before work too in aviation law. Jesus Christ.
For our nation, just before 9 p.m. last night, an American Airlines regional jet carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter carrying 3 military service members over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., while on final approach to Reagan National Airport. Both aircraft crashed instantly and were immediately submerged into the icy waters of the Potomac. Real tragedy. The massive search and rescue mission was underway throughout the night, leveraging every asset at our disposal, and I have to say the local, state, federal, military, including the United States Coast Guard in particular, they've done a phenomenal job. So quick, so fast, it was mobilized immediately. The work has now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly, and we are a country of, really, we are in mourning. This is really shaking a lot of people, including people, very sadly, from other nations who were on the flight. For the family members back in Wichita, Kansas, here in Washington, D.C., and throughout the United States and in Russia, we have a Russia contingent, some very talented people. Unfortunately, were on that plane. Very, very, very sorry about that. Whose loved ones were aboard the passenger jet. We can only begin to imagine the agony that you're all feeling. Nothing worse. On behalf of the First Lady, myself, and 340 million Americans, our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now. And in the days to come, we'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. That icy, icy Potomac, it was a cold, cold night. Cold water. We're all overcome with the grief for many who have so tragically perished, will no longer be with us. Together we take solace in the knowledge that their journey ended not in the cold waters of the Potomac, but in the warm embrace of a loving God. We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas. But we'll find out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job when that happened. It's a rough one. We'll be working tirelessly. He's a great gentleman. The whole group these are great people, and they are working tirelessly to figure out exactly what happened. We will state certain opinions, however. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the...
Trump signs an order blaming Biden and DEI for flight dangers. No. This can't be real. Like, I mean, this is, I'm sure this is real. Of course it's real. That's very Trump. But like, there's no way believe this, right? Like I think stuff like this is going to lead to a diminished results, right? Because you can't constantly say, oh, this is a consequence of woke. This is a consequence of DEI. This is a consequence of woke DEI over and over again, and then expect people to go, yeah, that's right. That is probably what it is. Like, there's no, okay, I'm calling it now. I think they're exhausting it too much. They're hitting the woke. You have no idea what's coming, Unc. No, I think the average person is going to be like, all right, dude, come on. I think that you can only exhaust that for so long. People inevitably experience fatigue. Okay, that's what it is. I think looking at look. You want to know why? You want to know why I think this? Because notice how he started this conversation. He started this by, one, reading a piece of paper instead of freestyling. That implies the severity of the tragedy. Number two, in the piece of paper that he's reading, he said things along the lines of, today we are united as one nation. Okay? That also implies the severity of the tragedy. Donald Trump is an insane person who normally doesn't care about anything other than himself. So much so that he would have just gotten in here and been like, he would have gotten in here and just basically started freestyling. The fact that he's even trying to read the paper and stick to script implies the severity of the situation. So when you have something like this, when you have an accident like this happen, that is a truly great tragedy, and you immediately hit the DEI button, other people are going to look at this and go, is it though? Come on, man. You say that about everything. And this is just the first instance. Okay? I'm saying this is the first instance. Oh, just you wait. You haven't played in long enough. He's going to start cooking. No, I know. Guys, I know. He is going to start cooking. Of course he's going to start cooking. It's Donald Trump. He's a narcissistic asshole. Of course he's going to start chirping about a bunch of different things. I already told you I didn't watch this yet, and I knew he was going to blame DEI. But my point is, the people's reception to crisis like this is inevitably going to lead to diminished results for the DEI vein that they keep tapping into. That's all I'm saying. And it's not necessarily about like the faith I place on the people that vote for this guy. I just think that narratives like these are effective if you use them briefly. If you constantly say it over and over again, people get bored of it.
Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that...
Like, I'll give you a direct example, okay? Egg prices are supposed to go down. They don't go down. They get more expensive, right? Let's say egg prices get more expensive, okay? You can't just keep saying it's DEI. At a certain point, people are going to be like, but you're the fucking president. Do you understand what I mean? Some people will turn around and say, oh, well, egg prices aren't going down because it's like has nothing to do with the president whatsoever. I just realized that, even though I didn't realize it under the Biden administration. But like, people will still experience the harm and will go, okay, well, my president's not doing anything. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you can blame DEI over and over and over again, and it'll be effective for many people. Okay. It'll be effective for a lot of people. I'm sure Asmongold's community is like, hell yeah, even though it was a straight white airplane pilot, straight white helicopter pilot, straight white air traffic controller, straight white FAA administrator fired by straight white president and straight white billionaires or whatever. Ultimately, it's actually the fault of woke, right? Like that, some people in Asmongold's community probably can eat this up. My point is, some people. I don't even think all people in Asmongold's community will eat this up. Do you see what I'm saying? Because like it's too much. It's too much. Like there's not a single like black or brown person involved in it, which most people don't give a shit about, right? But also outside of that, it's like, come on, dude, you literally say this about everything. At a certain point, even people who are believers committed to this cause are going to be like, it's like, what are we doing here? Oh, 9/11 is a DEI situation. You know what I mean? It's like looking at 9/11 and being like, this only happened because of fucking DEI. Like, you're ridiculous at that point. Do you see what I mean? Like, the JFK assassination only occurred because of DEI. It's like, no, there are certain things that transcend beyond that, and people want answers. And when you slam the DEI piece onto it, when you hammered the DEI button over and over and over again, people are going to be like, okay, well, I'm with you, brother. I think that, you know, we got to fucking deport these migrants. And I don't think that I want a black pilot. I don't know, but like, maybe this wasn't DEI, you know? Now, my expectation isn't that they will see that and then start engaging in critical thinking overnight and be like, maybe, what else has Donald Trump actually misplaced the blame on DEI on? Like, they're not going to do that. Okay? But it's a starting point.
And other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence. And we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be.
Yo, this is, okay. That's crazy. Yo, this is straight up. Yo, this is actually like, remember, the Nazis also hated the disabled too. Like, that's crazy. They actually unironically are just like, yo, if you have any disability whatsoever, fuck you. Like, what? That's crazy. Yo, what is happening? Also, I feel like Donald Trump is kind of disabled himself. You know what I mean? Like, what's he talking about? But to be fair, I guess Hitler didn't also subscribe to the Ubermensch in the way that he looked either. And Ben Shapiro is not exactly a beacon of masculinity. These guys don't really care about that. These guys don't even care about being a part of the in-group. They just believe that if they say the right things, they'll be a part of the in-group.
Air traffic controllers, I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program.
The ATC tower for this incident reportedly had 19 of the 30 staff say they needed for safe operation. That's the case for like ATC nationwide. Oh, I hate this. Dude, our endless profit seeking and endless cost cutting initiatives are unironically making, like, it's just, oh God, It's making air travel less safe. It will ruin commerce. It will have major impacts. This is a problem that Ronald Reagan, I think, played a formative role in creating, and no president has really fixed it.
Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those.
Trump's previous FAA was hiring qualified people with disability as well. Trump has made clear he has less than zero evidence that the FAA's hiring people with disabilities contributed to yesterday's crash, so this whole conversation is a non sequitur. But since he has started the conversation, some facts. The same FAA website language Trump blasted today by hiring people with intellectual and psychiatric disabilities and other significant targeted disabilities was on the FAA website throughout his first presidency. In addition to FAA, under Trump, launched and repeatedly promoted a pilot program to hire capable, qualified people with targeted disabilities in air traffic control positions. The Department of Transportation has pushed, at least since the W. Bush administration, to hire more people with targeted disabilities. And the FAA repeatedly said during Trump's first term that it'd continue to do so, emphasizing, as it did under Biden, that they have to meet the qualifications for the posts. The January 14th Fox News article Trump cited today as evidence of a last-minute Biden FAA diversity hiring push right before the Trump came back into office. It was actually published a year ago, January 14th, 2024. Again, it was criticizing the same website since at least 2013. I'm mostly staying off the site because gestures broadly at the site, but come on now. Alexander, the implication that this policy is new or that stems from efforts that began under the Biden administration is demonstrably false.
Implication that this policy is new or that it stems from efforts that began under President Biden or the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is demonstrably false. It's been on the FAA's website.
That, you?
No, it's on the website, the FAA's website. It was there in 2013. It was there for the entirety.
What I read.
It was there for the entirety of your administration
nice
too. So my question is, why didn't you change the policy during your first administration?
I did change it. I changed the Obama policy. And we had a very good policy. And then Biden came in and he changed it. And then when I came in 3 days ago, I signed a new order bringing it to the highest level of intelligence. Okay.
It was on the website.
Bro, does he think the executive orders are like God speaking? Like, does he think that executive orders have like magical powers? Yeah, dude, when you do a messaging bill, like a messaging executive order, it doesn't really change anything at all. Like the spending freeze was, that was consequential. But if you're like, we're going to eliminate DEI from air traffic control, like they're not going to fucking move to instantly fire every single air traffic controller that like is in a wheelchair, you know? That's not, I don't understand where this is coming from. RIP, that Churchill's going to Gitmo. Sad. You know his ass forgot what being president was like when there's constant crisis. Like, he must have. He's like, oh, man. Day 8 of the Burger Reich, by the way. Day 7, massive plane crash. Massive aviation incident. 60-plus people instantly dead. You're going to have a hard time finding a controller in a wheelchair. That's why the disability bid was a thing. What? If they want the best controllers, why don't they pay us the best money? I represent LaGuardia Airport as well as workers for JFK. Trump gutted the Aviation Safety Committee last week. Air traffic controllers, already understaffed, got Trump's buyout this week with a 1-week ultimatum to decide. It's not DEI. It's him. And Elon, too.
The opposite.
All right, hold on. Elon forcing FAA chief to resign because FAA fined SpaceX didn't help either. Yeah, I mean, dude, this is just straightforward bad management. And in times like this, unfortunately, when it's far too late to recognize, some people will find out exactly what the government does, right? Some people will, albeit when it's far too late, find out that these sorts of issues, these sorts of moves, these jobs that are otherwise invisible are actually very important in maintaining safety. When you have the proper tools at the FAA, when you have air traffic control working, it's invisible, okay? It's invisible. So you don't even think about it. You only think about it. You only you only think about the ATC being understaffed when it no longer is invisible. I read, I mean, there are reports on this stuff that the air traffic control in the United States of America has significant understaffing. It is the same principle at virtually every job site at this point. Virtually every industry, every sector demands more labor participation, higher percentages, and higher numbers in the workforce. And yet our cost cutting demands that people operate more efficiently. And that efficiency is going to lead to a lot of issues. That efficiency is going to cause problems, okay? Efficiency at the hospital implies that your emergency room nurse is having to take care of more than 5 patients, which is supposed to be the norm. 4 patients is supposed to be the max, right? Efficiency implies your nurse is now taking care of 10 patients, 20 patients, and you cannot give proper medical care to 20 people when on your 12-hour shift, the maximum amount of people that you're supposed to be taking care of is 4 people. But hey, guess what? That's a good cost-cutting initiative, right? It's better for the bottom line of the hospital, but it's actually lower quality care overall. It's also less safe overall. You do not want your grandparents or your loved ones to be taking care of someone who unfortunately does not have the proper bandwidth, the proper time, the space to take care of them, right? That is a great example of understaffing leading to worse results and less safety overall. It's not like the nurses are worse. It's just they're taking on so much more. And the same goes for the ATC. You know what I mean? It's not like the ATC itself is doing a worse job because they're just like more black or something. It's because there are more people that must be hired for these jobs, but that costs money and we don't want to do that.
And their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened because of the stress where you have many, many planes coming into one target. And you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis.
An FAA employee I know confirms the agency already lacks sufficient air traffic controllers. This is hours before the crash, by the way. The so-called buyouts and other attacks on federal employees won't help. Remember that fact when flight delays, crashes commence, and Trumpers start falsely blaming DEI or Biden. And then it's like the Washington Times. FAA turned away qualified air traffic controllers based solely on race. From the editorial board of the Washington Times. Like, that is literally an editorial piece from the Washington Times. It's no different than just like making up your own headline and then posting that as quote unquote proof. It's so goddamn stupid, man. That's the level of care and attention we have to proper media coverage nowadays. It's just like, hey, I saw this article headline that agrees with me. Look at it. It's like, did you read the article? Did you look at did you look at the outlet? Are you familiar with the outlet whatsoever? Like, is it an editorial op-ed? Like, is it an editorial piece? Is it actually objective news reporting? Is this website capable of objective news reporting? You says you lol. Dude, come on. I do this professionally. I'm not your favorite debate pervert content creator. Okay, I'm a fucking media figure for the past 10 goddamn years. I work with journalists directly. Like, media literacy is one of the most important aspects of my commentary. Yes, I can see a fucking headline and immediately know, or see a goddamn newspaper and know immediately what its actual inherent biases are. I don't need to use like ground news for that type of shit. Okay, you feel me? You understand? I know you probably watched a couple fucking drama slop tupers who don't know anything about politics, don't know their ass and their fucking elbows. And now you think like, well, I'm well equipped to think that this person who's a professional news commentator who literally gets consistent coverage from the likes of New York Times, LA Times, and numerous other legacy publishers about the work that he's doing in the field of new media. But actually, those guys are all wrong. Those professional journalists are all wrong. It's my favorite slop tuber that wrote a compilation of fucking Reddit posts. That guy knows about media literacy. Get the fuck out of here. Come on. I ain't got no time for this bullshit right now. He said, says you. I think I got to be a little bit more ruthless with people who just like have presented themselves as a formative, as a point of authority on things like this, while they are just simply dipping their toes into the field of politics without any sort of previous research, any sort of fucking reading done whatsoever. It's crazy. I'm noticing this trend.
Sleep paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit. The Department of Transportation is government agency charged with regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it, 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity. So I had to say that it's terrible. Then it's a group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration just prior to my getting there. And we took care of African Americans, Hispanic Americans. We took care of everybody at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It's one of the reasons I won. But they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent. But now we mourn and we pray, and would like to ask all Americans to join me in a moment of silence as we ask God to watch over those who have lost their lives and bring comfort to the loved ones. And I just want to say God bless everyone in this room. This has been a terrible, very short period of time. We'll get to the bottom of it. So we all saw the same thing. We've seen it many times. I've had the honor of hearing tapes. Tapes are scary, very scary tapes. You had a airliner coming in, American Airlines. He was doing everything right. He was on track. He was the same track as everybody else. They came in. It's probably the same track as they've had for 25 years or more. He's coming in the path. And for some
Tom Cotton, he admitted moment later.
reason, he had a helicopter that was at the same height, obviously when they hit, but pretty much the same height, and going at an angle that was unbelievably bad. When the air traffic controller said, do you see, he was talking about, do you see him? But there was very little time left when that was stated. And then also, he said, follow him in. And then almost immediately after that, seconds after that, there was the crash that took place. Well, you follow him in, that means like everything's fine, follow him in. You had a pilot problem from the standpoint of the helicopter, because it was visual. It was a very clear night. It was cold, but clear, and clear as you could be. The American Airlines plane had lights blazing. They had all of their landing lights on. I could see it from...
President Trump just not asked if he'd visit the crash site. Response, what's the site? The water? You want me to go swimming? He's got such a way with words, dude.
Memorandum titled Immediate Assessment of Aviation Safety. In light of the damage done to aviation safety by the Biden administration's DEI and woke policies, what this presidential memorandum orders is for your Secretary of Transportation and FAA administrator, in this case, acting FAA administrator, to basically ensure that we are actively undoing all of that damage, that we are assessing how much damage was done, and that we're ensuring that people hired within the FAA, in keeping with your memorandum of January 21st, are only the most outstanding, capable people for the jobs that they're being hired into.
In other words, competence.
Yes, sir. Elevating competence over everything.
Dude, everything. Like, 9/11 happens in the United States of America, and our leaders immediately Our leaders immediately use that as an opportunity to go to war with like all these countries in the Middle East, resource-rich nations that we want to invade. Tragedy happens under the Trump administration, and they're like, well, this actually is because we didn't melt the disabled. Far too many black people that have been hired for these positions. Like, it's crazy. Not to say that like one is better than the other, okay? Make no mistake. Moments of crisis create moments of opportunity for all administrations, okay? It's just crazy that like the scope has narrowed in spectacular fashion. Interesting stuff.
The Kennedy Center tape, we had a tape up on the Kennedy Center. That seems to be the primary. That's why I'm sure we'll see other tapes, because it's such an area where there are a lot of cameras looking up into the air, into space. So we'll probably see many other shots of it before too much time goes by. But we had a situation where you had a helicopter that had the ability to stop. I have helicopters. You can stop a helicopter very quickly. It had the ability to go up or down.
I just don't see what the fuck DEI has to do with the ATC being understaffed. Well, it's because you're actually looking at a real problem that exists in the ATC. Okay. Also, accidents still happen regardless if the ATC was properly staffed. Okay. I mean, look no further than like a place like South Korea, right? Despite the fact that these are also capitalist dystopias, like these places actually, these nations place a lot of emphasis on safety and maintain redundancies, right? Redundancy is the key to safety in general. You can never have too many people working on safety measures, and you can never actually, especially in air travel, you can never have too many redundancies. It's not a thing. Like most of these planes have multiple fail safes. When something experiences a point of failure, there is like numerous other systems in place that you can utilize, right? The problem is with, you are wrong, Korea has a terrible track record of safety. I mean, okay, Japan. There's never going to be, my point is this, there is never, first of all, I'm pretty sure that Korean safety standards, especially for flights, have gotten much better since that, not the Jeju Island tragedy, but the previous one before then. The reason why I'm using that as a point is that no matter how safe you want to be, there's always going to be some issues. Accidents still happen, okay? But the major problem is safety measures yield positive results, not immediately, but they yield the positive results that are invisible, and those benefits can only be seen in the long term, okay? Because instability and unsafety, like instability and a lack of safety, will cause people to lose confidence in flying in a fucking tin can, okay? And when that happens, the entirety of the airline industry is cooked. But if we are so hyper-focused on short-term profit, okay, over long-term stability, safety is inherently antagonistic to those goals. Safety measures require more people to be hired. Safety measures require the process of procurement to be longer. Safety measures require the process, everything to be slower, right? And that is antagonistic to supercharged profits. It leads to lower profit margins. So safety and regulation is inherently antagonistic to profits. That's it. And the more we care about profits, the more we emphasize the importance of profit margins improving, the less we emphasize the importance of safety. Let's
had
continue.
The ability to turn, and the turn it made was not the correct turn, obviously. It did somewhat the opposite of what it was told. We don't know that would have been the difference because the timing was so tight. It was so little. There was so little time to think. But what you did have is you had vision. The helicopter had vision of the plane because you had vision of it all the way, perfect vision of it all the way from at Kennedy Center where the tape was taken. And for some reason, there weren't adjustments made. Again, you could have slowed down the helicopter substantially. You could have stopped the helicopter. You could have gone up. You could have gone down. You could have gone straight up, straight down. You could have turned. You could have done a million different maneuvers. For some reason, it just kept going and then made a slight turn at the very end. And by that time, it was too late. They shouldn't have been at the same height, because if it wasn't the same height, you could have gone under it or over it, and nobody realized, or they didn't say that it's at the same height. At the same height, it still wouldn't have been great, but you would have missed it by quite a bit. Could have been 1,000 feet higher. It could have been 200 feet lower. But it was exactly at the same height, and somebody should have been able to point that out. So all of this is going to be studied, but it just seems to me, from a couple of words that I like to use, the words common sense, some really bad things happened, and some things happened that shouldn't have happened. So you had a helicopter going in an identical direction. You had a helicopter that was at the exact same height as somebody going in essentially the opposite direction. You had a plane that was following a track, which is a track that every other plane followed. And I don't imagine, I know I've heard today that they might have been following the preceding plane, which was pretty close, but not that close, the preceding plane. But you wouldn't have even been able to see that because of the direction that the